In this video, I'm going to be continuing to backtest gold over the 2024 price action. For anybody that's new to the channel, I'm also going to be doing an in-depth walkthrough of the trading plan and full system that we're going to be testing today before getting into the backtesting itself. So I won't waste any more time. We'll go through the trading plan walkthrough first of all, and then we'll get right into the backtesting. Alright guys, so before we get into the backtesting itself, let's just do a quick walkthrough of the trading plan and strategy itself. If you have seen any of my previous videos, feel free to skip ahead to the backtesting itself because you would have already seen this trading plan walkthrough. I'll go ahead and put the chapters at the bottom of the screen so you can see where the backtesting starts. But for anybody new that hasn't seen any of the previous content, this is the trading plan, and I will also leave this free document for you guys in the description below. You can download it completely for free if you want to check that out. So step one of the system is we're just going to go ahead and identify overall market structure on daily and 4-hour time frames just to see what the overall trend is and where price is likely heading. And then I'm also breaking this down to the hourly time frame just to identify any more of the refined structure and draw on any previous mitigations. What I mean by this, by the way, is if you have a look at this image, you can see here we were in this bearish trend, price created this breaker structure, and you can see it pull back, react from supply, and then push away. What I mean by previous mitigation is whenever price has reacted previously from a supply or demand like this, and then pushed away. That's essentially all I'm doing. I'm just marking this on as a kind of gauge of where price has reacted from the past, and therefore where it's likely heading going into the future. And for anybody that's unfamiliar with my chart layout, I basically distinguish between the mitigated areas and the current points of interest by these two colors. I have blue for the point of interest and then this white box for the areas that have already been tapped into. After that, we obviously want to identify an area where we are actually looking to buy or sell from, and this is what constitutes a point of interest. And what I personally have as a point of interest, I have two main types. The first one is an imbalanced area of supply or demand, which has to create some imbalance. So as you can see here, this one, it was a very clear level of supply. You can see it's the single bullish candle before we had this big sell-off, and it created imbalance. We need to see imbalance created because this basically signals to us that this is an area where people were willing to sell from in the past, and therefore it's very likely that people will be willing to sell from this price if it comes back up into it and react from it again. Obviously, we don't want to just blindly buy or sell from these levels, which is where the confirmation entries come into play, and this brings us over to step 3. So for a confirmation, what we're looking for is for the M5 time frame to present a change of character. So if price comes into this area of supply, we're waiting for an M5 change of character to the downside, which is essentially when price breaks below the current higher low in the 5-minute uptrend as price is trending back towards this area of supply. If we're looking to buy from demand, we're looking for price to break the most recent lower high in the 5-minute downtrend as it comes back down towards that area of demand. Once we see that change of character, and I'm then looking to simply identify an area of imbalance, and I'm setting my limit on this imbalance, and then I'm going to go about, if we go over to step 4, where am I targeting? I'm targeting a mechanical 1 to 3 risk to reward with my stop loss position just above the high or below the low of the change of character. And for anybody that hasn't tried this before, mechanical 1 to 3 risk to reward TP is a massive game changer. It just helps to remove any of that discretion and uncertainty in terms of exactly where to target, and it just gives you a more sort of, headache-free approach to targeting, and also a more mechanical based rule set rather than relying on like a discretionary TP where it's kind of difficult to do that because you could target this low, this low, this low, this imbalance. There's sort of an infinite number of targets, right? So if you just have this mechanical risk to reward, it makes it a whole lot easier and repeatable over time. And that's what I've personally found. And by the way, a 1 to 3 is not just some random number plucked out of thin air. This is based on around 5 or so years worth of back-tested and forward-tested data that I've personally found. And over that data, a 1 to 3 was the optimal risk to reward based on me testing multiple different risk to rewards and multiple different break-even rules as well. Which one other comment I want to make is if we go over to the risk management plan, we're doing 1% risk per trade, but the most important part here is that we're not making break even and we're not taking partials. So we're simply holding the trade to stop loss or take profit, which again was the best and most profitable approach that I've personally found after testing several different break-even rules and several different partial taking rules as well. Now, as I said, this will be available for free in the description below, and at the end of it I've included some more details about how I do trade journaling and also how I consistently improve the strategy using something called ASR, which is like this regular performance review that I do. So that's kind of gone through here in a bit more detail. I'm not going to go through it in this video because that's not the purpose of this video, but I'll leave it for free for you guys in the description below. So that's really everything in terms of the trading strategy itself. And this is going to become a lot more concrete when we head over to the charts and I go through some examples with you guys. So let's do that now. Let's get into the back testing and let's continue to back test gold. All right guys, so thank you for joining me here over on the charts. So getting right into things, we'll start off on the daily time frame and we will start off with a completely blank chart. So what we can see here, right, is that overall on daily chart, price is in this bullish trend. This was the most recent breaker structure. Price is still overall respecting this bullish structure, right? It's created this higher high, pulled back into the range, and at the end of last session, we were looking to buy after price had swept this daily demand zone. One of the things that I like to emphasize to the guys inside VIP is that when you see a scenario like this, where you have a point of interest, let's say a demand zone, and when that demand zone is actually swept, so when price goes slightly below it and taking the liquidity from the demand, the trade becomes a lot more likely to play out. And in this case, you can see that exactly played out on a higher time frame in this case, but it also works on lower time frame where you see the supply and demand zone swept and then price will make the move. So jumping over to lower time frame, what we can see here is price swept this daily demand zone, and then on, if we jump to the 1 hour, it hasn't really broken any hourly structure just yet, but you can kind of see it creating this very clear sort of bullish structure, right? Price has pushed up, fell to break the lows, swept this low, and then has now broken structure once again. And if we just take a quick look at the 4 hour as well, you can see based on where price is positioned here, just notice how there's nothing for it to react from. We just have this sort of big imbalance. There's no liquidity within this range. So my thought process here is that price is likely going to gravitate back towards at least this next liquidity level up here, which we'll just mark on. So if we're looking to buy up to that level, let's drop back down to the 1 hour. Yeah, this looks pretty clean actually. So you can see if we're on the hourly time frame, we have this first area of demand. That's going to be my first point of interest. We also have one slightly lower, this sort of region, which we can look for buys from if price comes into that level. But at the moment, this is my first point of interest. Yeah, there's nothing to buy from above it. So if we see if price retraces, right, there we go. So price has retraced into this zone. And as always, we'll go into the M5 for the entries. Let's have a look. Obviously, there's no entry here yet. Okay, right. This looks really good. So like I was just mentioning, when you see the higher time frame areas of demand swept like this is typically when you want to be extra focused, because this is typically where price is going to give the actual real move. So here we can see we have that change of character after the demand was taken out. There isn't any imbalance here yet, so this is not quite valid. I need to see some imbalance created first of all. Yeah, so exactly like that. Now we have imbalance, we have this area of demand, so this becomes a valid entry. If we set a limit on this area, stop slightly below, like this, and then if you guys missed any of the previous parts, what we're essentially doing with the TP is just using a mechanical 1 to 3 TP rule. And for anybody that hasn't tried this out before, I would highly recommend it because it just really helps to remove any of the discretion and uncertainty in terms of where to actually target. And it just makes trading a lot more sort of headache free because you know exactly where to target on every single trade, and it's a more mechanical, repeatable process. So let's see if price can pull back. Oh, I didn't actually set the limit. Let me set the limit here. At the moment, price has induced it. Hopefully we can get one last sweep. There we go. And nice one. Great first trade of the session. As you guys can see, played out very nicely for 3%, and we've now had another break of structure. Obviously, very clear bullish structure and trend coming into play. So these are like your optimal conditions to be capitalizing on. And like I said before as well, we do have this very clear liquidity target and magnet for price to gravitate towards as well. So I'm going to continue to look to buy up towards that previous high. Next point of interest that we have is maybe this area. If price can pull back into it. Checking lower time frames, there's not really anything else in this. Like you can see, it's just this big imbalance, right? So this is the next point of interest if price can pull back. If not, we can obviously look at a different point of interest instead. If price keeps creating more structure. Okay, so it did pull back into it, but it didn't respect it, obviously. So next area, if we zoom back out to 4 hour. So maybe we could see price gravitate back towards this area of 4 hour demand. You can see we've got some liquidity resting above it. Right, so price is in this area. As always as well, a sweep of this area would also be valid. So if price, I think this is more likely actually. So if price can sweep this low, which is the next liquidity level, we can see an entry from here. But yeah, I don't want to buy here at the moment just because we've had this big move down. This looks very much like a pullback for lower prices rather than some continuations. So yeah, at the moment, waiting for that liquidity to get swept. There we go. Jumping over to the M5. Price has just presented an entry. You can see here we had that change of character. In terms of areas of demand, this is probably cleaner on the 15-minute, but you can see we have... You could refine it to this one down here, but what I would personally do in a case like this is just have it maybe on this whole area. So I'm going to set my limit right here. And I'll have stops slightly below because one thing gold likes to do a lot is sweep the initial push and then go in your intended direction. And as before, I'm just going for a 1 to 3 TP. So let's see how this plays out. Okay, so instant loss on that one. Let's zoom back out. Where could we next see price react from? Next liquidity level, price is just taken. This is kind of the last point I would consider the buys, because if it goes any lower than this, it will create a new low just here, and then it's probably going to go for this low, for example. So this is kind of like the last point I would consider buying from. Let's see what price does here. No change of character just yet, obviously. So yeah, at this point in time, in order for a confirmation, we would need to see price break this high. That's the current lower high on the M5 and M15 as well. So let's just play this on a little bit. Obviously, one other scenario is if price grabs this low again and then creates some more structure. Okay, so we're getting a push. Like I said, if it breaks this high, we can look for an entry. There we go. So price gave us our change of character. That's what we wanted to see. In terms of entries, not really seeing a clear demand zone to enter from, so I'm just going to play this on a little bit. Yeah, so it doesn't look like price is pulling back for us there. So yeah, in a situation like this where there's no clear entry demand, I would just be monitoring price and then using an M5 confirmation to enter. So maybe here you can see price has pulled back and swept these lows. Let's have a look at the M5. Yeah, nothing here. I wouldn't enter this. Okay, cool. So price created a new high. Next point of interest, maybe if price can regrab this low, you can see particularly if we go on the 4 hour, for example, you can just see it's this last bit of liquidity leading into this imbalance. Price has held the low, fell to create a new low down here, and now has pushed back up. So maybe if we can see a sweep of this low, we can look to get back in. Right, there we go. So that low has now been taken. Jump into the M5. We need to see price break this structure. Right, there we go. Is there a clear demand here? Yeah, so one of the things that sometimes I'll do, even though I'm looking to enter on the M5, if there's no clear entry demand on the M5, I sometimes will zoom out to the M15 just to get a little bit more clarity in terms of the areas of demand we could enter from. So in this case, this is a valid entry. I'll set my limit here and see if price pulls back. It also broke this 15-minute structure as well. Right, there we go. One of the things that I also try to emphasize inside VIP as well is that whenever you have these areas of supply and demand that take out liquidity to the left, they become more likely to hold. So as you can see in this case, that's exactly where price holds after this demand swept the liquidity. And yeah, nice one. So there we go. The TP was hit on that trade. Maybe if price can start to pull back here, we can look for another entry because I'm looking to buy up into the opposing liquidity, which is this previous high. So let's see if we can get a retracement and then look to buy up to there. Okay, maybe from here, price has come back down into that extreme demand, swept this low into it. If we jump over to M5, there's no entry just yet. Yeah, so at the moment, the lower high that price needs to break for a confirmation is this one. Right, there we go. It did break the lower high, but there's not a clear entry demand here, so I'm just going to let this develop some more. Not really seeing anything too clean here. Right, so it did re-grab the low into the demand. Notice how this extreme is still holding. This whole sort of bullish scenario is still valid as long as this area holds. So we've had a sweep of that previous liquidity. Haven't yet had a change of character. Right, there we go. That's what I was waiting for. And now we've had a change of character. And we also have a clear area of imbalanced demand. I'm actually going to refine this one just because that's a huge area. So I'm going to set a limit on this area. Stops just below the low. If it comes any lower than that, I don't want to be involved. And we'll go for standard 1 to 3 TP. Limit is still valid, so I'm going to keep it on. Right, there we go. So we're tagged in. Notice how I, like here as well, it did sweep the demand, but the demand is still holding. Gold does this a lot, which is why I like to position my stops a little bit below. If I was looking for another entry, probably could enter on this 15-minute demand, but because we're in this initial trade, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, that would have been a nice, yeah, there you go. That would have been a nice second entry opportunity if you missed the first, and that trade also played out very nicely. So let's have a look here. Price, this probably is going to be the rally that takes the high. Let's have a look. Yeah, there we go. So price has now created a new high. Obviously, we've still got this very clean bullish price action going on. So looking for more buying opportunities to target. If we look to the left, definitely to at least target this previous high up here. You can see like there's not really anything for price to reverse from until it at least sweeps this high. So we'll keep monitoring price here and see if it can pull back and give us an entry. Okay, so next point of interest. You could refine it to this demand, but I would personally take this whole area. This whole area here is the consolidation that price broke out of. That's also one thing I don't like to do, is over refine supply and demand areas. I find that you miss a lot of trades if you do that. Okay, so that zone perfectly held, but I think this was probably NFP Friday at 1 p.m. 1:30 p.m. So yeah, this obviously price has taken that high now, but we didn't see any reaction from it. And this is also now internal structure, so we can get rid of that. And this is the main breaker structure, right? One thing I would consider here is it would be counter trend, but if we can get a sweep of this liquidity into the imbalance, because it is such an obvious liquidity level on higher time frame, if it's swept and we start to see price break lower time frame structure, I would consider sells. So I'm just going to mark that on with a line. In terms of buys, next point of interest for me, there isn't really one here. This is kind of a bit of a mess. Maybe if it came down and retested this demand, but apart from that, there's not really anything here. And yeah, there you go. So liquidity level has been swept. In a case like this where it's very bullish, I would want to at least see a 15-minute change of character. An M5 change of character wouldn't be enough for me. So let's see. Yeah, there you go. So that was the M15 change of character right there. In terms of entries, we have this area of imbalanced supply. We also have this one just below it. So what I'm going to do is, rather than trying to get like a really sniper precise entry, I'm just going to enter on this one and have stops above the high. And as always, going for a 1 to 3. I like the fact as well that you have this big NFP wick just below, which even if price is going to resume the bullish trend, you would expect that to maybe get filled beforehand. Right, there we go. So price has tagged us in. Nice reaction so far. Let's see if this can continue. Maybe we can look for another entry in this supply, just kind of following this 15-minute trend back down. Let's see if we can get an entry here. Yep, so this would be valid. You can see we've got area of supply after change of character. I'm going to set my limit here. Stop slightly above it and then go for a 1 to 3. And because we're already in this initial trade, I'm going to make this initial trade break even. This is the only circumstance under which I would make a trade break even, is when I'm entering a second trade. So let's see if this holds. Okay, nope. Oh, that was unlucky. So price just stopped us out a little bit and then hit stop loss. First trade played out nicely though. As you guys can see, we hit 3% on that one. Yeah, so let's have a look here. Price is now approaching that bullish point of interest as well. So if it can tap back into this area, this is where I'm going to consider some more buys. Actually, yeah, price is retracing before sweeping this wick and also before coming into the demand. So maybe we can look for another sell from this area of supply that price has just tapped into. So let's see how it develops in this area. Hasn't given us a change of character yet. Okay, now it has. There you go. That was the change of character. In terms of entries, could maybe look for a retest of this imbalance up here. Let's have a look. Going for a 1 to 3 as always. Actually, I don't expect price to come up there now, but looking on the M5, we have this potential entry area instead. So I'm going to set a limit on this one. If it comes any higher than this, I don't want to be in the trade, so I'm going to position myself like this. 1 to 3, standard TP. I'd say this was a lower probability trade because it's counter trend a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That's annoying. It did run like 2.4 R. Could still play out. It's re-grabbed the high, but there's not really an entry here. Yeah, there you go. So it did end up playing out from that supply, but there wasn't really a valid entry there. And yeah, there you go. So price is now tapped back into our demand. It's also grabbed this inducement just above it. So in order for a confirmation on this trade, we would need to see a break above this high. Let's have a look. It does look very likely in my opinion. There's not really anything else stopping it from getting there. Yeah, there we go. So that's, in this case, I'm on the M15, by the way, because the M5 structure is exactly the same. As you guys can see, this is the M5 lower high. Let's have a look. Yeah, so in terms of entries, this is a valid point of interest. Again, I'm on the 1 hour just because it's a lot clearer in this case, and it's the same structure. So I'm going to enter on this area. Go for a 1 to 3 TP, just above the high. More of a swing trade, but that's fine as well. Okay, there we go. So we're tagged in. Let's have a look. You probably could have got an M5 entry on this as well. You can see we've got this area of demand. Price has swept some lows into it after the initial change of character. If we were looking at an M5 entry, let's have a look. Nothing just yet. Yep, there we go. So this would be, there's your change of character. There's no imbalance here, so I wouldn't enter just yet. Yeah, so you can see price just moving up. There wasn't really a valid entry there. Maybe we can look for a re-entry from this area. If it pulls back. Okay, nope, so didn't pull back. Swept these lows and this just went to the highs. This was probably some sort of news as well. But as you can see, that one did hit TP in the end. So that's very nice. And if we zoom back out, we've now seen price break the main structure again. So again, very clear bullish price action. No reason to really look for some sells here. I'm looking for more continuations. And obviously now, if you look to the left, price is very clearly targeting previous highs up here. Apart from that, there's not really anything for it to reverse or react from. So I'm looking to continue buying up towards that level. At the moment, the only point of interest I'm seeing is this one, but I doubt price is going to pull all the way back there. So we'll keep an eye on it and have a look if another one forms. Maybe this area. So you've got this area of demand right here. And you could also say that this was a breaker structure. If not, maybe we could see a sweep of this low. That would be my next point of interest. And we still, like I said, have this area of demand down here as well. So these are the 2 points of interest I'm looking at. Quite slow and choppy right now, so I'm not going to take an entry from there. And as always, a sweep of this level would also be valid. So a sweep of the demand zone. Did come a little bit lower. I'm going to take this entry. So we have had a sweep of that demand low. And price gave a change of character. Created some imbalance just here. So I'm going to enter this. And we'll go for a 1 to 3. Okay, nope. So loss on that one. Price is now obviously coming back towards the next level, which is this previous liquidity right here. You can see as well, this is a nice area because it's the last bit of liquidity before you have this big imbalance. price is typically very reactive to those sorts of areas. Yeah, there you go. So price has taken that out. It has now given us a change of character right there. And we've got a very nice area of demand right here. So this is a very nice trade actually. I'm going to set this. Stops just below the area. And then we'll go for just, again, 1 to 3 TP. There we go. Tagged in. Nice, there we go. So that was a quick one. Very nice trade though. Like I said, price reacting after sweeping that last bit of liquidity before the imbalance. If we're looking for another entry here, maybe we could see a retracement into this demand. Obviously, I need to see another confirmation, but that's the next point of interest at the moment. Nice. So this is good because price is retracing before taking out the opposing high. So it gives us another nice buying opportunity up towards it. And yeah, so we have our change of character. And yeah, we have this area of imbalanced demand. Actually, did it tap the demand? I think it's induced it. Yeah, so it actually induced this area, so I'm going to wait for it to come a bit lower. Yeah, there we go. So price came a bit lower. Now you can see we now have that more impulsive change of character with clear momentum coming back in. We've got an area just here of imbalanced demand. I'm going to set my limit on this area. I have stopped slightly below that low. And then again, just going for 1 to 3. Let's see how this goes. Right, there we go. We're tagged into this now. Okay, no, price is coming lower. Still within this demand zone, so I'm still considering buys from here. It has now come to this more refined one as well. Yeah, I would consider this a change of character. So we've got that pullback, change of character. In this case, there's no reason to wait for a retracement. I'm just going to enter here, stops below the low, and we will go for a 1 to 3. And this is what I mean, by the way, when saying don't always try to get these sniper entries. Like, you could wait for a retracement into the demand, but it might not happen, and then you might just miss out on the whole move just because you were waiting for too precise of an entry. I'd rather just enter here with stops below the low. So yeah, in that case, it did just pull back into the demand, but it's a bit unnecessary really to wait for that. And yeah, there we go. So that did end up playing out from the refined demand. The reason I was so confident in that one as well is because it did just take out previous lows into it as well. So it was a nice opportunity. Cool. Let's look for another opportunity here. So we've got another breaker structure now. If we go out to hourly, yeah, so we have this next point of interest. Maybe if we can see a buy from there, that would be quite nice. There we go. Price has retraced into our point of interest. Jumping over to the M5. Yep, that's perfect. So we've got change of character right there. We've got an area of imbalanced demand. So I'm going to enter here. I'm going to have stops a little bit below because, like I said before, I didn't want to have it just slightly below the demand because gold very often sweeps the demand before then going in your intended direction. So we'll place this right here, and there we go. So we're tagged in now. Nice wick projection so far. And nice, there we go. Very quick trade actually. That happened in like 1 hour pretty much. Cool, so next idea. If we get rid of this now, we can see that price has broken the main structure once again. Currently, the only point of interest I'm seeing is this one, if price can retrace into it. Right, there we go, so that did end up happening. Jumping over to the M5. Let's have a look. Ideally, we see all of these lows taken first. Okay, nope, so they haven't yet been taken out. Yeah, so I don't want to buy above this because you've got all of these lows down here. Okay, no, so it looks like price is going straight for the high. Yeah, that's fine though. I wouldn't have bought above those lows. That was kind of putting me off the trade. Okay, so looking for the next idea. Could still see price come back down and take out these lows. Okay, no, so that seems unlikely now. Let's have a look at another idea. And yeah, cool. So you can now see as well, price did break the main daily structure, which was this one. Right there. So we can get rid of all of this because this now becomes the internal structure. Because it was within the current bullish leg, the price has now created a new bullish leg. So let's have a look if we can. Obviously, I'm not looking to sell. Like, one of the mistakes I see a lot of people making is that when price takes the external high in an overall bullish trend, they'll look to sell. But, you know, based on this momentum, it's low probability to sell. I would rather just wait for a retracement, maybe into this area, to then continue to look for the buys instead. So yeah, this is the next point of interest. Actually, this would also be valid. So we've got, you can see price taking out this low into the imbalance and starting to react. Let's see if it flips bullish here. Yep, there we go. Flip bullish, imbalance demand. I'm going to enter this. There's no reason not to. So that's also a good example of when it's essential to react to price rather than predict it, because originally I was predicting price to come down to this area, right? But once I saw it reacting from this liquidity level, I was happy to look for an entry here instead, because that's what price was showing me. Right, there we go. We're tagged into this. Let's just play this on higher time frame. And nice one, there we go. So that trade played out very nicely for 3%. Nice and perfect TP actually as well, because price reversed afterwards. We could now look for another entry from here. This was that original 4-hour demand that we had marked. So let's have a look. Nothing just yet. Okay, obviously that area wasn't respected. As always though, this could still be valid because we've now seen it sweep the demand low. So if it starts to react from there, it would still be a valid trade for me. So yeah, let's pay attention to what happens here. Let's have a look on M5. See if it flips bullish here or not. Yeah, no, so obviously price didn't respect the area. Next point of interest would be this previous low. That's kind of the next liquidity level price is gravitating towards. Could also look like, notice here how it's pushed down towards that low and is retracing before sweeping it. So this gives us a nice opportunity to look for a potential sell down into it. So that's what I'm going to look for here. Maybe if we can see a retracement, we have this area of supply up here. Okay, nope, so we didn't really get a retracement. This now becomes invalid because price has swept that liquidity level. It has also come into this area of demand. So I'm going to look for the buys here. Let's see. Currently I need to see this high broken. And closed above. At the moment it hasn't closed above. Right, there we go. So now we've got a closure above. In terms of entries, we've got this kind of liquidity here. and then we've got this extreme. Maybe if price can retrace into this. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to set a limit here. You can see now price has built multiple lows above this area as well. There we go. Oh, nice reaction so far. So the liquidity I was talking about, by the way, you can see we've got these lows built above it. You probably could have got an M5 confirmation in that area as well. Yeah, so after it broke this, pulls back into the imbalance. That would have been quite nice. And there we go. So TP hit on that one. We can also see now it has broken structure again, so we can look for another buy here. You can also see it has stopped before taking out this liquidity, so that gives us a nice opportunity to buy up into it. Next point of interest is this demand right here. You can see it pulling back quite correctively. Right, so it has tapped into that demand now. Let's see. Yep, this is valid. So you've got that M5 change of character. We've got this area of demand. So let's set the limit here. Stops. I'm going to put it slightly below the low, like before, in case price wants to re-grab them, which it very often does on gold. Nice, so we're tagged in. Let's just play this on higher time frame so it's a bit quicker. And nice one, there we go. So like I said, once you see price retracing before sweeping the liquidity, you know it's very likely to target that level. And that is kind of the idea behind this trade. But yeah, guys, so this video is getting quite long. So what I'm going to do, we will go through some of the analytics just to see how we're doing so far. So yeah, at the moment, 64 trades, 68% win rate with a 1 to 3 risk to reward. So obviously very profitable at the moment. You can see that just by looking at the equity curve. Max loss streak was 2 trades, and I'm pretty happy with the trade frequency because we're averaging around 2 per week, I believe. Obviously, like I always try to emphasize, you don't need to take many trades to be very, very profitable. Obviously, this here was a very profitable system, and we're only taking around 2 trades per week. So it's much better to focus on those high probability setups, which, you know, happen once, twice a week, rather than trying to trade every single day or multiple times per day, as these results show. So I'm going to end the video here, guys. If you did like this video, make sure to give it a like, make sure to comment below. And if you missed the previous part, watch this video next. And that's it from me today, guys. I will see you in the next video.